We're really excited to be talking to Eli Valley on today's episode. Eli is an author and artist, and his latest book is Diaspora Boy, Comics on Crisis in America and Israel. And a great sign of just how good it is that Abe Foxman of the Anti-Defamation League calls it bigoted, unfunny. Bret Stephens, the Islamophobe at the New York Times, calls it grotesque, wretched, and Commentary magazine called him ferociously repugnant. So, great reviews. Don't forget, this month our live taping is an anti-Columbus Day special. It'll be on Monday, October 9th, and our special guests will be Wendy Muse, PhD history candidate at NYU. Her research focuses on collaborative efforts between left-wing activists fighting against a military dictatorship in Brazil and colonialism in Portuguese Africa during the Cold War. And Noah Changa, a progressive Renaissance woman, and the host of the podcast The Way with a Noah. Make sure you come out to the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue, October 9th at 7 p.m. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm your host, Katie Halper. We are so excited today. We're going to be talking to Eli Valley. He's a writer and artist. I'm being really peppy, and I'm here with my co-host,
Gabe Pacheco. What's up, Katie, man? It sounds like you've been drinking Monster Energy drinks.
And you know why I'm doing this is because my mom, big fan of the show, big friend of the show, FwdRad.io, doesn't like the way I sound at the beginning of the show.
Really?
She told me that, yeah.
She said put a little pep in your step.
Put a little pep in your step. Put a little love in your heart. She said, I don't like that because I guess I go, hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. It is a kind of a downer or weird something.
Yeah, you always gotta end on an upbeat.
Upbeat, yeah.
Upbeat.
Hello, this is Katie, the Katie Halper Show.
Yes.
Yes.
That lets the audience know that we are off on a good foot.
Yes, we are off on a good foot. We should do some more mixed idioms. We like to we want you to listen. You know what? We need you to support our Patreon so we can put food on our families, to quote George Bush.
Ooh.
And you're working hard to put food on your family.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So
we'll send you photos of our families on tables with food ladled on top of them.
That would be good, actually. Ladle, dreidel. See, I'm up. I'm here. I'm wired. I'm queer. I'm queer allied. Queer allied.
Queer adjacent?
Queer. Well, I'm really not.
Right.
You know, it's not a choice.
Ally.
It's not a choice. Do you think I choose to be involved romantically with men? We're born this way.
Yeah, you're born with a brick and mortar gender identity. You wish that it was like a pop up food cart
that I could like switch out.
You could just move in and out, change the cuisine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this really corny Ani DeFranco song.
To me, what's more important is the person that I bring, not just getting to the same restaurant and eating the same thing.
I got spots. I got stripes too.
I've got spots. I've got stripes too.
A lot. It's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space. I did actually probably go to more Ani DeFranco concerts than any other artist.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know who she is from going to Bard, right?
100%. Yeah. Freshman year, there was there were a ton of Ani DeFranco fans and women with acoustic guitars.
Right.
My breast is cradled in the curve of my guitar.
In my cohort, my year.
And
they would serenade us.
Really?
Yeah, they would have little mini concerts in their dorm rooms.
With both hands.
With both hands.
And walking out in the rain, and I'm listening to the mountain again.
I am walking out in the rain, and I am listening to the low moan of the dial tone again, and I am getting.
Did that bring back memories? Was it good enough to make you think Ani was
I'm
there?
having flashbacks.
Right? Yeah.
PTSD.
And I can't let it go.
Freshman year at Bard College.
Nice. And Wesleyan, forget about it.
Boom.
I'm there. Boom, I'm there. Please make sure that you rate and review us on iTunes and that you follow us. If you don't do the iTunes, you can do SoundCloud, but we really prefer iTunes because then you can rate and review us. We get some stars.
We love the reviews. If you guys write funny reviews, we will read them
on
the
Yeah,
air.
exactly. We will do that. Also, make sure that you support us on our Patreon, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. You will not regret it. So much great bonus content from Adam Johnson. Everyone loves Adam Johnson.
He was great.
He was great, right?
Yeah.
Walking encyclopedia. Matt Carbonis, actual Dr. Adam Gaffney. We got a lot of, well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to discourage people from giving, but let's just say we got a big uptick in Patreon donations because people know they know that they got to listen to Adam Gaffney.
Yes.
Adam Gaffney, kind of like Gabe, he's an honorary Jew. I don't want to out him. He's not Jewish. I mean...
So many Jewish mothers disappointed. They think, oh, look at this doctor.
Doctor. He's a doctor,
eligible.
A single-payer advocate. He bridges that divide between lefty moms and just your traditional Jewish moms.
Right.
Right? Because he's a doctor.
He's the best of both worlds.
Yes, within the Jewish world.
Yes.
Which is the only world that we live in.
Right, because we're located in New York City.
Exactly, yeah. That would be funny. We could do a test. I mean, this is a little problematic, and we're bordering on eugenics. But we could do a test where people would have to guess whether you or Adam are Jewish.
Yeah, I mean, when I go out for commercial auditions or anything, it's me and as a Latino, and then they just me and a bunch of other dudes that don't look anything like me.
Right.
And I should really just go out when they're casting for
Fiddler on the Roof.
Nebbish Jewish computer programmers.
Exactly. Or Tevye.
Tevye? What's Tevye?
Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, gotcha.
If I were a rich man,
yes.
I would...
All day long I biddy bum. If I were a wealthy man,
showing my my ignorance of the diaspora art scene.
You know what? It's okay because we're going to find out a lot about that. But again, make sure you go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. That's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. We got that Adam Gaffney bonus, then we got James Adomian, which is one of the funniest things. He's McCain. He's John McCain. So funny. You know, the thing about James Adomian, of course, is a comedian, and he most recently was in the Bernie versus Trump tour, which was also a fusion special. What is so cool about James is that he was a theater econ major, which doesn't really mean like you need to do that to do really smart political comedy, but it's more a sign of his interests. So when he does his impersonations of of politicians,
right? He like Jesse the Body Ventura.
Exactly. He really brings like an intelligence and an analysis to it. So like when he impersonates John McCain, he says, "I will. If there's one thing I can promise, is I will bring down the gooks." And of course, that's a reference to John McCain's refusal to stop using the word gooks, only for his captors.
Yes.
And again, as we brought up, it would be like if I had been assaulted by 4 black men, let's say, and I called them the N-word, but only for them, and all other black men I called. It would be funny if I called them really woke names, African Americans. I mean, that's like expired woke, but
yeah,
it'd be funny if I became like really into Angela Davis. I was like a big Assata Shakur defender.
But with this very small sliver
of racism,
of
applied racism,
just laser precise,
exactly,
racism.
Laser precise racism. Yeah. So here's some fan mail we got in response to the episode from last week.
Sure.
This is from Ephraim Duke, and his comment is "whiny leftist babbling" in quotes. Quote, "whiny leftist babbling," end quote. There, saved you 41 minutes. And I wrote, "Thanks for the listen and contributing to our listen count." And he wrote, "Well played," and then had a smiley face and a clapping hand. Now, Ephraim Duke, his avatar is black, but his clapping hand emoji is white.
Yes.
Just saying. Maybe he's conflicted. Maybe that's not him in the avatar. Maybe those hands aren't actually his. Get it? It's an emoji. They're not actually his. But he gave it a like also, so maybe we converted him. What do you think?
You know what? Maybe he wanted the attention. He wanted the validation.
Exactly.
And that's what we're here for at the Katie Halper Show.
We are here for that, yeah.
We'll listen, guys. We listen to your feedback.
We do, yeah. Remember we found some great feedback from someone who really was a big fan of yours. Yeah. I don't know where that is, but I'll find it because we got to bring you the comments.
Somebody on Twitter said that I have to speak louder into the microphone.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only
feedback
note I got.
You know what you got to do. Oh yeah, the volume level should be adjusted when the interview starts. The volume drops significantly. Damn, Matt Karp sure does talk fast. That's another one.
Well, stop listening to the podcast at 1.5 speed if you can't handle how fast it is.
You know, Gabe, I like the way you assume that that's what people do.
Because that's what I do. I listen to all my podcasts at 1.5 speed. I do that on my iPhone.
Yeah, your iPhone, right? Yeah.
You know, there's a plug for a product that's not paying me.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Oh, we got someone quoting Adam Johnson. That's actually helpful because we can then make little Instagram images out of that. Remember, guys, we really want you to quote us and our guests We'll even take you quoting our guests. That's how tolerant we are. Usually we wouldn't it be funny if we only wanted stuff on us? Like we only wanted to make Instagrams about us, not about...
I mean, you can roast us too.
Yeah, roast us. Yeah.
I'd love I'd love a critical quote.
Yeah, well, Gabe already responded so well to your constructive criticism. Oh, I found something else. My mom found it for me, actually. It was some discussion on Reddit, and someone said, does anyone else find it hard to listen to Katie Halper? Did I bring this up already?
I think you, yeah.
Because she sounds like a Jewish aunt.
Yeah, but then somebody's defending you as being really
attractive.
Sexy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So thanks, guys. Okay, a question. Would you rather someone say you're stupid and attractive or unattractive and smart?
I mean, I'm pretty vain.
Yeah, so you would say...
You get, I just noticed you get away with a lot more stuff if you look good.
Right, so you would say you would rather attractive and stupid, right?
It's always great to be underestimated.
Intellectually, like a sleeper attack.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, you want to fly under the radar.
Exactly. I would also say the same thing. Because I think that for a lot of people, especially as a woman, I'm much more... I'm pretty confident in my intelligence.
Yes.
And I think there's some women who I think are seen as as they're just objectified as physically attractive and not taken seriously intellectually. Mm-hmm. And they probably want the other thing. They want to be seen as smart and unattractive.
Right.
No one wants to be seen as unattractive, but probably the thing that they... In other words, if someone says Katie Halper's stupid, I'm like, sure.
Here's the secret, the real secret. Everyone is dumb and unattractive. So
if inside.
Right. Hey, guys, am I speaking to your inner child?
Yeah.
You're all dumb and unattractive. But we all have that insecurity on the inside. And really, what do we know? We know very little about the universe, about what's going on inside of our bodies.
Usually people say that stuff like, we all have that insecurity inside, and then they offer a positive affirmation. But you know what? You're beautiful and you're smart.
We don't look like pages from a magazine, but that's all right. Oh, baby, that's all right.
But you're like, and you know what? That's not off, because what the hell do we know? So embrace you're not like push back, stop, tell that inner voice to be quiet, challenge that inner voice that's telling you you're stupid. You're like, embrace it, because you're right. That's the smartest you get, is when you acknowledge your own stupidity.
That's right. Understanding that you have limited access to information,
right,
and you also have a limited ability to actually process the information that you're taking in.
Right.
And we're all fallible. Sure, there's maybe 4 hours of the day when I'm lucid.
Yeah.
And when I'm functioning at a high level. And then there are times where I'm on the couch binging on an entire pint of ice cream.
Ooh. I could eat unlimited ice cream.
And watching Veep. 5 episodes of Veep in a row.
But lots of times you watch smart things about the drug war and Latin America, so I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. Well, when you were a little kid, did you feel more insecure about your looks or your intelligence?
Oh, well, I got held back in second grade.
Really?
Yes, but it's because I went to a school that was failing. And so when it closed at the end of second grade for me, and then I had to restart it. In a new school.
Oh, so that doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Right.
I also started young, so
right,
I was young.
Because you're a December.
Yeah, exactly.
Baby, right.
So they were like, "Oh, let's just put him in second grade
Why
again."
Why not? Yeah.
Which was fine, but I think there were a couple years where I thought, "Oh man, I failed out of second grade. I'm a dum-dum."
So your parents didn't sufficiently explain it to you,
right? So this is just me overcompensating for that, spewing my opinions on the radio.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that happened. Then I'm glad you had that trauma. I thought you were going to be like, I was held back in second grade, but it was because of my looks, not intelligence. So
well. Yeah. And I just, yeah.
Were you a scrawny kid? Were you a little scrawny kid?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was a chubby kid.
I
mean, not the svelte, wiry, wasting away woman you see before you. But, no, I was a chubby kid. So I think most people... You
diaphanous waif.
Yeah, exactly. I'm low-key thick, as I like to say. I think most people...
Like a delicious milkshake.
Yeah. But with some shape to it. A delicious milkshake in an hourglass stein, if you will, an hourglass mug.
I've been doing a lot of animalistic exercises in my apartment.
Really?
I don't
Like what?
I don't like to go to the gym, but I'll do a lot of
Grasshopper hops.
I do the hops.
Really?
And I'll do bear crawls along my floor.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I'll do backwards bear crawls, and I'll do crab walks. I'm just I want to be a ninja.
You could do my thing. You know what my signature exercise move is? Duck walk. It's just how I walk. I waddle. I have a waddle.
I think in my self-image, I was that sick kid from The Simpsons.
But because you were the sick
I was.
kid.
Yeah. I was a little wheezy, asthmatic kid. I think my self-image, I identify a little bit with Diaspora Boy.
Oh, yeah, good transition. Yeah, we're going to get into that right now in a second.
But,
which is why you're an honorary Jew. Your honorary Jewdom started not just with your asthma, which already throws you into the Jewish category, but also with your perception of yourself as a little wheezy kid.
Yeah. But I got to say this, once you accept and embrace that you're not the smartest and you're not the hottest.
Another pep talk from Gabe.
You work with what you got.
Exactly.
And enjoy the tiny sliver of time that you have on this planet.
I was a long time coming. I'll be a long time coming. You got your whole life to do something, and that's not very long.
You're like, enjoy the mediocrity and then be dead.
Give me a call. Decide willing to fight for what you think is real, for what you think is right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, just don't work that hard.
I wouldn't have to work hard. Yabba dibba 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 dibba.
And use your free time to the best of your ability.
If I were rich, I'd have the time that I like to sit in the synagogue and pray. And I discuss the holy books with the learned men 7 hours every day.
Watching Veep and eating ice cream.
And that would be the sweetest thing of all.
Today we're going to be talking to Eli Valley, whose name is spelled E-L-I, but don't be fooled. It's Eli, not Eli. That's Eli Valley. He's a writer and artist whose work has been featured in The Nation, The New Republic, The Daily Beast, The Nib, The Village Voice, Gawker, and elsewhere. And he was selected for the annual anthology, The Best American Comics of 2017. He was the 2011 to 2013 artist in residence at the Forward newspaper.
The oldest Jewish newspaper in the country.
Yeah. And his art, that's still around.
Yes.
Yes. And his art has been labeled ferociously repugnant by commentary and hilarious by the Comics Journal. Eli's comics collection, Diaspora Boy, Comics on Crisis in America and Israel, which was released in 2017 from Or Books. His website is www.elivalley.com. So, ladies and gents, and people of all genders, please welcome Eli Valley. Yay. This is our new thing where we do a clap, right? Eli Valley. Hey. We're so happy to have Eli Valley live in the studio. He's going to be talking to us about his new book. It's called Diaspora Boy, Comics on Crisis in America and Israel. And it's a really good book. Like, I'm not just saying that. It's a great book. Eli is an extremely talented artist, and I knew that, but I didn't know. Like, I kind of assumed, because you're a smart, funny guy, I assumed that your writing was good, but I hadn't read it as much. And his writing is really good. Not just the writing about the comics, but your writing in the intro to this book. So this book is huge.
It's rich in text and illustrations.
Yes.
That's not me talking. I just want people to know
Yeah,
that
of
I'm
course.
not flattering
Yeah, no.
myself.
No, this is Gabe Pacheco right here saying
Yeah.
this book is it's dense in a good way.
Yeah.
And lends itself to multiple readings.
Now, how big what is this? It's what? By what? It's not 8 by 11 even. It's...
No, it's 12 by 14, I believe. I don't know if it's a ruler in this podcast studio.
Yeah, no,
it's about
but
12 by
it's
14.
12 by 14.
Yeah, because the broadsheet comics, they kind of need
Right.
larger viewing format.
Right. It's from Or Books. Shout out to... So... You have a forward by Peter Beinart, journalist, Reformed, post-Zionist, maybe still Zionist.
I think he probably would consider himself still Zionist. Yeah.
So I just wanted to read the opening paragraph of your book before we get into the comics. Actually, could you read it since you wrote it?
Sure.
Thanks.
Should I grab it here?
Or I could just impersonate you reading it. Yeah.
Do you want to do
Gabe
that?
could do it. No.
Okay.
That's okay.
Where were the victims? It was a cold day in Warsaw, and I couldn't find them. I was standing in front of a statue, and it had everything, or at least everything you'd want from socialist realist diorama. A feather-haired woman clutching a rifle, another woman oblivious to her blown-away blouse, even a baby at the top, its arms raised in a battle-ready pose. The whole scene was unabashed pulp, and I loved it. Still, it seemed like an odd image, given the location. This wasn't a random spot for Soviet resistance art. Unveiled by sculptor Nathan Rappaport 5 years after the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and less than 1 month before the establishment of the State of Israel, these fierce fighters emerging from flames were built atop the ruins of the ghetto in such haste that burnt-out debris was incorporated, along with tons of concrete, into the monument's base. I'd expected victims, martyrs, something about the people who died. Over 400,000 Jews in the ghetto had been murdered through starvation, disease, and deportations to Treblinka before the nearly month-long uprising began. It ended when the Germans burned, bombed, and gassed every remaining building in the district. Surely there was more to memorialize at this site of absolute devastation, a still smoldering graveyard when the statue was unveiled, than modern-day Maccabees. And yet, aside from a single prostrate figure in the corner, this was a paean to human, really superhuman triumph. And not only triumph, but victory of a specific sort. The figures were modeled on Jews visiting Europe from kibbutzim in Palestine. By chance, I wandered around to the other side of the statue, and that's where I found them. A smaller procession of 12 people, hunched over and headed to their slaughter. Unlike the heroes in front, who were literally bursting from granite blocks originally intended for a Hitler Victory Monument in Berlin, these figures were cut in bas relief into the stone itself. The procession was meant to recall the Arch of Titus and the Roman destruction of Jerusalem. Here, the horrors that had devastated the largest Jewish community in Europe were suggested, but only as a footnote. In every sense, the figures were shadows, hidden away as a source of shame.
One more.
All right. I was shocked. How could they bifurcate heroism and victimhood? Isn't that a grotesque oversimplification, not to mention an obscene insult to those who were murdered? Even the inscription reinforced the binary. To the Jewish people, its heroes and martyrs. Yes, there was context, Soviet constraints and censorship, unabated instability in both Europe and the Middle East, the ordeal of rebirth in a city completely destroyed by Nazis. But still, as a piece of Jewish art and iconography, it seemed larger than that. And that's what it has become, a Jewish icon multiplied to the point of definitive self-image. Rappaport's heroes have been reproduced everywhere, from postcards to postage stamps. A replica stands outside the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. Both sides facing front, here the victims magnified to focus on the suffering. It is now the archetype of Jewish self-imagery. As Rappaport himself said, could I have made a stone with a hole in it and said, voila, the heroism of the Jews?
So what is it that you're getting at with this opening and this discussion of the bifurcation of heroism and victimhood? Because I kind of think that that's something that pervades not only your book, but Jewish identity and history.
Yeah, well, recent Jewish history, at least, with the emergence of Zionism in the, last century, and also the sort of dominance of Zionism in terms of Jewish educational constructs throughout the world, they essentially bifurcated all of Jewish history into heroism and slaughter. I mean, it's one reason why when Jewish American tourists visit Europe, they're surprised to hear that it's more than a graveyard, that Jewish history began earlier than the 1930s when there was, such a huge uptick in hatred.
So you're saying that this, in the 20th century, we've seen like a reduction of Jewish history into like an essentialism? Like
Yeah, I mean, I'm simplifying a little bit, but the good thing about Zionism is it's such an oversimplification itself that you don't have to go much further.
Yeah,
it's already hyperbole, which is why these comics can be fun to draw.
Right. You talk about something that I'm not sure non-Jews know about, this bifurcation of heroism and victimhood, as you say, and this bifurcation of Jewish identity into assimilated or diaspora Jews and Israel Jews, or allegedly Israel Jews, because, of course, most of them are diaspora Jews that went back there.
Using the term aliyah, meaning rise up.
Right.
Even the vernacular uses terms of, elevation and submersion. When they leave their yiridah, they're going down, literally. That's their term for it.
So you're Aliyah or Aliyah?
Either way.
The singer?
Yeah, I think.
Is that what she was named after? But to make Aliyah, right, is for non-Israeli born Jews who moved to Israel, right?
Yeah, it's a term within Jewish and Israeli vernacular, meaning that they moved to Israel. And, Israel gives these benefits to people who make aliyah, but the actual term, it's also when you get called to the Torah in the Jewish world, that's why you say aliyah. It's like that's the accent we use in the Ashkenazic world, I think.
Like, what type of benefits do they get?
I actually don't know the financial benefits, but there are a bunch of... do you know about this? I don't.
It's
I
like
don't
moving
know.
to Alaska, where you get money
know
for
this.
living there from the government.
I did not know this.
Yeah, Alaska's got a universal basic income.
Whoa.
Well, like, they give everybody a couple $1,000s
Yeah.
for tolerating the weather.
Right.
I think it might be a certain amount of money, but I think more it might be like sort of assistance with housing, possibly, or loans or something. But I actually don't know, and I don't want to be on the record as saying these things. And then
That's
the Israeli
okay.
embassy sues us.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't worry. Hey, guys, Google it. Check it out.
Yeah.
See if you can find out what
Benefits
the benefits
of Aliyah. I'm sure you can Google it right now.
Right.
and find
It
out.
also sounds like a great name for a band.
It does.
Benefits of Aliyah.
Let's do it, guys. Let's do it. And
Probably taken in Tel Aviv.
and we only play klezmer music. You go through this kind of hatred that's been imposed, this contempt for diaspora or assimilated Jews, which is, of course, propaganda to justify not only the state of Israel or Zion, but to get people to move there.
And support it.
And
do
support it,
everything
right?
we can in America to justify some atrocious policies.
Right. It could be helpful to actually talk about your actual description of the Diaspora Boy versus Israel Man.
That was very interesting for me, being an outsider. It was a great entry point into what could be seen as like inside baseball, like a sort of a Jewish on Jewish critique.
Yes.
But for Gabe Pacheco, the guy who doesn't know all about it, that comic really shined a light, illuminated everything.
Yeah. What page is that on? I think that'd be really
The
good
actual
to-
comic, Israel
Yes,
Man Diaspora
the
Boy?
one where you see them side by side and it describes them.
33.
Okay, let's go to that one.
Basically, in that one, I just took Zionist thought and, polemics and tweaked it just a little bit, which is why I say in the introduction, no Zionist ideologue in the world understands that comic, because it's like, what are you talking about? This is normal. You just illustrated reality. Yeah, maybe open up a little bit. It's actually illustrating horrifying ideology.
Right, that's interesting. So they see it as what's wrong with this? It's new. It's a.
This is
well,
an
now
American
I'm doing,
Jew. The American Jew is
yeah.
crippled. Yes.
Right.
How is this satire?
And when you say that, you're saying that when you show this to Israeli Zionists or American Zionists?
Especially Israeli Zionists. I mean, there are Israelis who are not Zionists.
Sure.
But, generally, if you're going to find a random Israeli, they will, believe in certain founding myths of its state.
They'll be like, "Is this an actual?" They're like, "This is a secondary source. It's great. It's how we should teach the difference between diaspora."
Well, it says up here. Approved for Zionist education everywhere.
So what we're describing are these two characters and that Eli has created, Israel Man and Diaspora Boy. And I think it's helpful to start with this because this lays out the kind of bifurcation, as you describe it, of these two identities. And just so people understand, this is basically this preceded the Holocaust, but the Holocaust really upped the ante. It really heightened the narrative because you have the narrative of diaspora Jews, which is again are Jews who don't live in Israel, seen as kind of all the like Woody Allen's, seen as Woody Allen
With leprosy.
Yeah, like pasty
and eczema.
Oh yeah, we'll get yeah.
His collective oeuvre.
Yeah. So let's describe, and this is an interesting thing to describe comics over the radio, but I think it's good. So we have the title of this comic is Israel Man and Diaspora Boy. On the top of is this called a panel? The top of or is it just a comic?
It's like a cover. I did it with a comics code kind of thing on the right.
Cool. So it says on the top, Jewish Mythology Comics presents Israel Man and Diaspora Boy. On the top left corner, it says one shekel or $75,000. I don't get that. Is that just a currency?
Well, just saying, shekels are so valuable.
Valuable,
so,
got it. Yeah,
that's the trade.
And then on the top right, there's a comic stamp. Is that what did you just call it?
The Comics Code Authority, which was instituted in 1954, like a self-censorship device. But I use that sort of same emblem. But
cool.
But it says approved for Zionists.
Do you know these terms? Because a lot about comics. Okay,
yeah,
Gabe is like
books.
rolling his eyes. I can't get over my ignorance at comics.
Well, actually, the Comics Code is a separate issue we can discuss because that also the pre-code comics are basically the inspiration for a lot of my work.
Oh, okay. So this is approved for Zionist educators everywhere. And then what you have is a very strong looking muscular figure that says that has like the superhero label of I, which of course stands for Israel man. He's very tall. He's muscular. He's wearing a cape. He's kind of handsome. Has a major six pack, and then you also have a goblin looking figure who's comes up to basically Israel man's thighs with a crutch.
Yeah, he's holding a crutch. Also, the Zionist sort of masculine obsession sort of attributes to diaspora Jewish men feminine qualities as well. So I have him with breasts. He's lactating as well.
Oh, okay. So he has breasts. He's lactating. He's drooling just to make him, I guess, unattractive.
Yeah.
Let me know. Surrounded by flies.
Wart-ridden.
Warts. Has like long nails.
Fangs.
Has like, instead of a cape, he has like a shmata, if you will. Yeah. Like a rag. It's with patches.
He's on the cover too. I reproduced him coming out.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So what's wrong with that image? What's
glasses. How we can't forget glasses. He's bald. He has some patchy hair, and then you have wheezing and gasping. And then should we read this, and then we can talk about what's wrong with the image?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out the order of stuff.
Yeah, well, that might help.
Yeah.
Okay, so you read it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the description of what we see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the cover. It also has not the cover of the book, but on this drawing. Revel in the euphoria of Zionist thought. Marvel at the birth of the new Jew. Thrilled to the words of Max Nordau, a founder and leader of modern Zionism, who called the diaspora Jew a cripple within and a counterfeit person without, so that like everything unreal, he is ridiculous and hateful to all men of high standards.
Okay, and that's true. That's an actual quote.
That's a quote, by one of the founders of Zionism. And then Diaspora Boy on the cover of this this page says, "My entire existence is a useless waste, Israel man." And Israel man responds, "Have no fear, Diaspora Boy. I am here to replace you."
Nice. Nice. Okay, and then
so like an Ubermensch, a man of the future.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a very very 1930s Germany vibe to it.
Man of Tomorrow on the anatomy of our heroes. It says.
Oh yeah. So this is another page, right? Another.
Yeah. So there's like 3-page this comic.
Okay.
What's cool about the second page is like you basically have like a T diagram where you have the Man of Tomorrow, Israel man, basically boasting about all of the things that he's good at. And then on the other side of the page, you have Diaspora Boy.
Harbinger of death.
and a litany of all of his, I don't know what the right word would be for those.
Defects, weaknesses.
Yes, dysfunctions.
They all correspond to Israel man's
superlatives. And we could do a couple of those.
Yeah, let's do it. So on the top of this page, it says Anatomy of Our Heroes. And then the heroes are Israel man, quote-unquote, Man of Tomorrow, and his pathetic sidekick, Diaspora Boy, Harbinger of Death. And so, like Gabe was saying, it's a T. What is it? This is interesting.
Like a T chart.
A T
so
chart.
You're, you're basically...
to compare it. Yeah. So you want to read them, Israel Boy, and then
Israel man.
Israel man. Sorry, you're
Israel
right.
Boy.
Do you want to do? Oh, what, Gabe? Which one? Why don't you play one and you play the other?
Yeah. Do you want to?
I'm happy. Like? I'm happy to do whatever, man.
I mean, as someone who wheezes, I'm just saying, but we don't have to.
Okay, so I'll do Israel man, and you read the Diaspora Boy next to it.
You want me to be as stereotypically Diaspora Boyish as possible?
No, because I mean you can if you want, but these aren't meant to be said in their voice. It's supposed to be the objective. So I'll read Israel man. Able to see 10,000 years into the future.
Physically, psychologically, and spiritually blind.
Perfect nose evolved from Greco-Roman ideal.
Proboscis, repulsively enlarged due to faulty respiratory system allergies.
Skin sun-bronzed from fields of farming and battle.
Suffers from eczema, ringworm, shingles, boils, leprosy, and acne. Even sunlight despises him.
Pectorals can stop bullets.
Man breasts cannot stop lactating.
Should we go on?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Scent of trees, fields, mountains, and fresh springs.
Odor of garlic, mildewed books, rampaging Cossacks.
And that's a reference to the smells coming out of their armpits.
Yeah, I should mention each of these things has arrows going to part of their anatomy.
Right.
Then an arrow going towards his waist. Spine straightened with pride and self-confidence.
Spine crushed from centuries of servility and self-hatred.
And then an arrow going towards his loins. Seed used to make the desert bloom.
Oh, sounds great. Hasn't had an erection since the destruction of the Second Temple.
And then another arrow towards his rear. Moves his bowels with optimum regularity. Feces used as currency in developing nations.
Cannot defecate without 5,000 milligrams magnesium hydroxide, 4 gallons of prune juice, and a heating pad.
Clothing harks back to that of prophets and kings.
Clothing borrowed from Gentile culture.
Very nice, yeah.
So,
Nice.
Oh, and then of course he's.
Oh, yeah, and
He's,
so...
and because Israel Man is so much taller than Diaspora Boy has to be standing on a bunch of books, and whichever you want to read a couple of the titles of the books. These are the books that you can find, in Diaspora Boy's library.
Yeah. How to Love Your Anti-Semitic Gentile Wife, Dwindling Population Studies, Volume MCC LXX111, Exile, The Religion of Self-Hatred, The Hypochondriac's Cookbook, Woody Allen's Collected Oeuvre, How to Live Without a National Culture, The Parasite, God's Greatest Creature, Encyclopedia of Fear and Paranoia, and then finally, 1,000 Reasons to Support Israel.
Nice. I feel like a lot of Israel's identity and kind of Zionism is based on a masculine insecurity.
Very nice.
Thank you. And this idea of, there's the image of diaspora Jews or Ashkenazi Jews, right? Because, of course, there's the Sephardic Ashkenazi divide. And most Jews in Israel are actually Ashkenazi, but they, right?
I don't even know. I don't know the breakdown.
So.
Are they? Okay.
I think, yeah, because Sephardim, they're called something Mizrahi.
Yeah.
They face some racism
they
or
do,
oppression, whatever.
But I
and
thought they might face it despite being
maybe
either
because
because
the Ashkenazi run everything.
Yeah, exactly.
The Ashkenazi are the Jews of the Jews, basically.
Well, the Mizrahim are the Jews in terms of being subjugated in that regard.
Right.
But in terms of that,
I mean, like in terms of who runs the government, who runs the media, all
Right.
the stereotypes about. What's interesting is whenever we say something in the United States, when we say something is Jewy or Jewish, we always mean. Look, your eyes.
No,
Ellie got nervous. Oh.
No.
We always mean Ashkenazi. We don't say this, but basically all the stereotypes that we use in the United States are Ashkenazi stereotypes. And roughly you can break down the Israel Man versus Diaspora Boy divide to Sephardic versus Ashkenazi. Now, they may not be Sephardic, the Israelis that we're talking about, but that's kind of the legacy that they're invoking.
That's an interesting view of it. I'll be honest that the Sephardi Ashkenazi divide and cultural differences didn't really play a part in this because I was talking about an ideology that was essentially born in Europe, and
right.
And so I don't know if either of them would be equated to Sephardi or Mizrahi Jews. Although I would be curious about those kinds of readings. It just wasn't in my sort of writerly intent, so to speak.
And I think it's not articulated. I guess I'm just using that as kind of shorthand code. I think it's in there because basically the image of the Israeli Jew is one that's bronzed, one that can work the land and is strong, right?
Right. Well, on the other hand, though, they also demean Mizrahi culture there. And
right.
So from that perspective, Mizrahi...
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing, and it's this weird contradiction, which is that because basically Israel is it's Ashkenazi run, and they don't elevate Sephardic culture. But I think that because Sephardic Jews, a little history thing, right? Sephardic Jews are the Jews who went to Spain and Portugal and North Africa, right? And the Middle East.
Yeah.
Ashkenazi Jews are the ones who went to Eastern Europe. Right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So even though they don't articulate this difference, the actual physical traits that they're elevating in Israel are ones that more or less can be associated, not to sound like Hitlerian or whatever, but because Sephardic Jews are the ones who look more like the original Israelis. So they're darker, they're tanner, they're
more outdoorsy.
Yeah, I think that's true, right? And Ashkenazi Jews are the ones who represent again, no one makes it. No, the narrative is diaspora versus non-diaspora, but the Ashkenazi Jews are that. They're the pastier ones, right? They live in the Pale. They don't get as much sunlight. All these stereotypes, right? They're more assimilated. They are victims of pogroms. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not articulated, but I think it's an interesting thing that we see throughout Israel. Also, again, the Holocaust is so defining and it's so used to justify the state of Israel, but it's also, there's some contempt for it and shame.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And that's what you talk about in the opening with the monument.
Yeah, I just want to add to what you were saying in terms of like the bronze look. Yeah. There was a whole sort of movement, I think, in the 60s and 70s in Israel of sort of like fetishizing Arab culture, while also
killing them.
Exactly. But I mean, it's like, people who wear Native American dress in America, it's like, so, but
Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole thing, bronze and certain aspects of music, etc., were sort of like, but it was also like comparing it to how it was before the destruction of the Second Temple, when they considered Jews to be fighters, victorious, etc., and like everything between the destruction of the Second Temple and 1948 is a wasteland. Right.
So it's butch versus femme, also.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is there something too where in like in an assimilated culture or when you are in diaspora, this pressure where Jewish people were put under, like, because this is a reading I have as not being part of the Jewish community, but this pressure of like be taking certain roles in society or only having certain social outlets. Whereas in Israel, since it's a Jewish state, Jews run the spectrum.
Right.
So like they're more, what is it like? They get to be everything. They get to be, and in that, is that where some of this the stereotypes come from that the Israelis have around diaspora?
Some of the later, some of the later kind of stereotypes come from that, but a lot of my sort of satirical targets are the ideologies that were at play before the State of Israel emerged even. But yes, even before the State of Israel emerged, Herzl and other Zionist thinkers were talking about how normalization, as they called it, would mean that Israel would be like a country like any other country in the world, and Jews would be everything from, prostitutes, which, of course, Jews already had been because,
not a lot of work options.
Oh, okay,
limited,
but also
limited
because,
employment opportunities.
Jews were in every field.
Right.
It's a myth that we were only in certain kinds of fields. But anyways, according to like Herzl and others, Jews would finally be normalized and they would be taxi drivers, etc.
The great Jewish aspiration of every mother, that their sons become taxi drivers.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk just briefly, I know this is a big thing, but about like the founding of Israel for our listeners who aren't?
About like, what do you mean?
Just like what happened, how it happened, 1948.
Well, you had one comic strip that actually dealt with anti-Semitism in England.
Oh, yeah.
There's the
funny.
British character who is anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And that does that deal with sort of like the ideas around the founding of Israel?
Not so much, actually. This comic, to be honest, sorry.
No, I don't care.
Undermine what you,
dude. What do I know? I'm just
no. I don't really like love that comic now, but I'm including it from the point of view of sort of like completism.
Yeah.
From that perspective, but it was a little bit of left punching. But at the time, I was like really pissed at certain aspects of British. I think, anti-Semitism is a legitimate term to use the way certain British, especially moneyed British attitudes have played out concerning Israel and Jews, actually. So there's a comic called A Modern Fable, and this comic was from 2007, and is a reaction to one, horrifying aspect of Abe Foxman's long list of shadows on the ADL, and this was his urging Congress not to pass a resolution recognizing the facts of the Armenian genocide.
And the ADL is the Anti-Defamation League.
Yeah, the Anti-Defamation League. And he did that largely because at the time, Turkey had a much stronger relationship with Israel, and I think it's getting strong again, but it kind of went down a bit during that whole incident.
Flotilla.
The flotilla incident, yeah. But anyway, at the time, this is pre-flotilla, and Turkish government denies the facts of the genocide, of course, and so Foxman was trying to, make sure that Israel's relationships were as solid as possible, despite, in the process, inverting the very core purpose of the Anti-Defamation League, which is to point out things like, genocide, So he was like a genocide denialist, which is just like, it's an everlasting shame, and it should be forever affixed to his name.
You just sounded so Jewish. It is an everlasting shame, and may it forever be affixed to his name.
I'm sorry about that. But
don't apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. So, in the comic, I basically have a woman who is like, she hears that Abe Foxman will do things if you give him a certain amount of money, because she heard about the Mark Rich affair, in which Mark Rich had given $100,000 to the ADL, and Abe had urged a presidential pardon. Mark Rich was this money launderer, sleazebag, essentially, who Bill Clinton pardoned at the end of his term.
And Foxman pressured Clinton to pardon him, right?
Well, he was one of the people that, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but urged. He advocated for Mark Rich to get the pardon, yeah. And anyway, so in the comic, this woman hears about that, and she's a 92-year-old Armenian American, so she raises money all across the country to try and get Abe Foxman enough money to actually have values, or to have a moral core.
Consistency about genocide and bigotry.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to give spoilers, but that's basically the narrative thrust of the comic.
Right. And so we just see here, what I like is like your comics really bring up a lot of hypocrisy around what certain people say that they stand for, and then what the real politics behind it. And so like just the fact that you'd think that if you're standing against genocide being perpetuated anywhere in the world, that it's so disheartening to see that like a national treaty or a deal with Turkey is going to undermine, or negate acknowledging a horrific thing that happened to the Armenian people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have this famous line of "never again," right? Which is saying never again. What happened in the Holocaust, never again. May it never happen again. But there's a lot of it's a little disturbing how for some people that's a very, very particular and specific thing. Never again to Jews, as opposed to a universal never again. It's this proprietary genocide.
Yeah.
It's like genocide. TM of the Jews. Yeah.
This comic ran the week Foxman fired the ADL's regional New England director for disavowing Foxman's position and for backing a resolution in the U.S. Congress recognizing the fact of the genocide. In the ensuing outrage, Foxman was forced into a rare concession. Quote, "We've never denied that there was a massacre. We just didn't engage in the G word," Foxman told the Forward. Quote, "Now they're insisting on the G word. Fine." Unquote. His carefully worded new position, conceding that the, quote, consequences of the, quote, painful events were, quote, tantamount to genocide, did not assuage the concerns of Armenian American activists. His continued opposition to a congressional resolution infuriated the same groups as well as many in the Jewish community. The stain on the ADL endured for another 9 years. It was only after Foxman's retirement that the organization was free to unequivocally recognize the genocide as genocide.
Right. So, right, in theory, we don't want the Anti-Defamation League to just be anti-defamation of Jews, right?
Exactly.
It's not called the Anti-Jewish Defamation League. It's the Anti-Defamation League.
Yeah.
But there lacks a kind of universalism.
Yeah.
It waters down its potency if it's only
right.
shrill around Jewish issues.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be shrill around all.
Shrill, yeah.
Well, that's how you get attention. You
Right.
got you got to
Cackle.
Yeah.
Cackle around all issues. It's true. And then it perpetuates the idea that Jews are this kind of mafia that only cares about other Jews. And the few things that gives me Jewish pride, but one of the best things, this book, Ellie says, is Ellie's book, Ellie's comics, Ellie's writing, my own work, this radio show, the work of Gabe, the comedy of Gabe, Honorary Jew, yeah. Is the universalistic, the tradition of universalism that has existed, and the Jews historically have engaged in struggles and allied themselves with struggles. This has been largely eclipsed by the uber nationalism of Israel and the Zionist project. But we have Jews like in the Spanish Civil War, the most common.
Abby Hoffman was Jewish.
Major internationalist, levitated the Pentagon. You may have heard of it. But, Yiddish was the most popular language among all the international brigades who fought in Spain against Franco. I mean, that's just an example. But a lot of, internationalism, universalism.
After Abe Foxman's been gone, the ADL has thankfully been, especially under Trump, much more, combative when it comes to other people's rights, especially Muslim Americans. However, on the Israel question, they are still,
of course, of course. But the ADL, God bless them, the God who doesn't exist. Actually, I mean, what's so weird and scary is, I don't know if you've experienced this. I've talked about this on the show before, but for someone like me who's constantly criticizing the way that the label of anti-Semitism is thrown around extremely casually, right? And usually used to describe someone who's not anti-Semitic, but is criticizing Israel's policies. Yeah. It's a weird experience for me under Trump to actually be saying, like, hey, that's anti-Semitic.
I know. It's bizarre.
It's bizarre.
A lot of things have become inverted in the Trump era.
Yeah. And so you have Jewish organizations that usually weaponize that term and exploit that term to describe any criticism of Israel, like being whatever the opposite of vigilant is. When we've talked about this, when Trump's administration on Holocaust Memorial Day doesn't mention Jews and doesn't mention anti-Semitism, right?
Yeah. Not only that, they've been tacitly accepting of people like Bannon, people who are allied with actual Nazis, or Gorka. The Zionist Organization of America tried to have like a dinner hosting Bannon and like celebrating him. Right. It's disgusting.
Doesn't ramping up anti-Semitism abroad increase the case that Israel has there totally. Needs to they need to perpetuate a state?
I'm not saying they're doing that deliberately, but it's interesting how
they are.
No, I don't think they actually want anti-Semitism in America. No. All they want is a safe and secure and militarily dominant Israel, and anything else that will get in the way of that, basically. And so I'm not saying that that's the...
No, but you talk about the Paris... Can you briefly talk about the Paris thing, where Netanyahu, after the attacks in Paris and Charlie Hebdo?
Yeah, Charlie Hebdo.
You write about it here.
Yeah. I mean, basically, after the horrifying attacks in Paris, at the kosher supermarket and at Charlie Hebdo, Netanyahu came to Paris, and first of all, they were all talking about like moving all of French Jews to Israel, and he came to Paris and he told them that it's like, I forget it, I actually quote it here, but it's something like, comparable to the Inquisition, etc. And because it plays into Israel's conception, like Israel Man and Diaspora Boy, that the only safe place in the world is in Israel,
and of course, what's interesting about that is it undercuts the justification it has for killing lots of Palestinians, for saying the Iran, we need weapons, and Iran shouldn't be able to develop whatever nuclear stuff capabilities. I'm a real expert on this stuff, on the terminology. But that isn't. I remember thinking that at the same time. It's like you can't both boast that Israel is the safest space in the world for Jews and say you're constantly under the threat of
existential death crisis.
Yeah. Thanks so much. What a great show, huh, Gabe?
I had so much fun with Eli Valley in here.
Did you feel like you learned more about your Jewish identity?
I now I understand the Jewish identity more than I did before. So this was a transformational interview.
Yeah, you understand yourself in a way, if we consider you an honorary Jew.
I don't like having identities pushed on me.
You're a Jew. I'm not pushing it.
And I'm happy being a Latino of Mexican descent. Thank you very much. But Jews are great. That's what I learned today.
Jews are great, and so are Mexicans.
Yeah, I was on the fence.
Mexican Jews the best.
Yeah, Mexican Jews are awesome.
He's not actually Jewish.
I know.
Yeah. It's just this thing that gets brought up on the radio every episode.
It's funny.
So,
maybe every 4 episodes.
This was a super Jewish episode, and I was happy to be part of it.
Thank you. I feel validated. All right, yeah. Cool. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Join our Patreon. We're going to have great bonus content with Ellie.
Yeah, guys. Rate and review us on iTunes. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Patreon.com/The Katie Helper Show. And to hear the rest of our interview with Ellie, please become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Helper Show. The Katie Helper Show is produced by Florence Burrow Adams with help from Joshua Bregman, and our theme song is by The Ballet. Make sure you use the hashtag KTHelpShow, that's letter K, letter T, HALPSHOW. And follow us on Twitter. That's KT Helps and Gabe_Pacheco. See you October 9th at the live taping of the Katie Halper Show at the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue.